right, folks, I am back in the shop, and guess what? It's another day on the Jag. There's a few minor things I found that have been worn or need attention, and I'm going to be taking care of those today. And one of the items, actually, these brake rotors right here, drilled, slotted, and not very Jag-like for an XJ, and they actually cause a problem. And that problem is, because of the aluminum body on the X350, X358 platform, when I hit the brakes, they make this like buzzing sensation throughout the car. And it seems kind of crazy because I've had these types of rotors on other vehicles. Actually, our old F-150 had them when we purchased it, and no issue. But on this, because of the architecture of the chassis, it causes issues, and I got a good deal on some replacements, so I'm going to be swapping those out. And actually there's a few other things, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to jack the car up, I'm going to get the wheels off, and then I'll show you those issues in a little more detail, and we can get those interchanged and swapped out as well, and we will be one step closer to having this mechanically sorted. So with that, welcome to another episode of Low Tech Garage, and we're going to be working on the beautiful XJ today, so we can get back to working on the Mustang Fastback and some of these other beauties lurking behind me as well. Okay, so the other piece I'm going to be removing is this upper control arm. It is very tired. It is pretty tricky to get the camera back in there, but the bushing, especially that back one, is pretty blown out. And figured as I've got the rotor off to do the brakes, I'll swap that out. The upper ball joint, it's not bad, but it should be a little more stiff than this too. And as you can see, the boot is non-existent. So I'm going to be pulling this off. Basically, I've already undone the ball joint. So I have this one, which is tricky. I think the wheel liner has to come out because it kind of has to get back behind here. And then this guy is really in there, and I'm hoping I don't have to drop the strut out. So let's get started. Alright folks, well, it's a little bit of a wrestle. Fun fact, the brake line goes through here, so you have to disconnect the caliper, so be prepared to do a little brake bleeding when you're done. But this is why I'm replacing it. Let me try and show you, but you should not be able to do that, and obviously the boot is completely destroyed. And on the ball joint end, I think I showed you, but again, no boot and pretty loose. Here's the new guy. That's what we're talking about. And same here. And like I told you guys, I think this is from a Lincoln LS. I think I paid about 50 bucks for this. Jag ones, even on the aftermarket, are 180. So I'll put a link below where you can get the Lincoln LS one and save yourself a few bucks. So with that, let's get this guy installed. All right, folks, well, we are back in the shop. It is post-Hurricane Helene. I'm sure some of you guys saw on my shorts that unfortunately we were impacted by the storm. Our faithful F-150 Franck is no longer. He got water up to about chest height and basically the ECU got fried, and sadly not worth repairing. Now, I am a sucker for OBSs, and so I hope that there will be another OBS in the future, but for now there won't be any more F-150 videos. I will do a complete update on, what the impact of the storm was, just to share that with everyone. And equally, unfortunately, our G37 IPL was lost in the storm too. The water was over the hood in that car. Pretty devastating for a lot of folks here in Florida. I can just say that I'm really thankful that we do have other vehicles, and as much as they always seem to need some work, we have transport. So with that, I thought I'd show you kind of where I ended up here. I think you see where I got the new control arm in, and then actually I ran into a little bit of issue with the control arm bolt and got sidetracked and forgot to film a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take you actually to the other side of the car and kind of show you the issue I had, although it was on the opposite side. And then we will get started on this other side with the repairs I'm going to do here too. And the issues with this bolt right here. I started tightening it up on the other side and it just locked up. And obviously the control arms on this are aluminum, and with a not aluminum bolt going in, and equally a lot of load from the strut here as well. I very cautiously removed the bolt, and there were metal filings wedged into the thread. So as you guys imagine, I wasn't really in the market for a lower control arm. So I proceeded for the next hour to meticulously clean out the threads on the bolt, and then with a little bit of grease on the bolt, work it in and out of the control arm without the strut, and just slowly but surely clean all the threads in the control arm. It was very tedious, but it was successful. I was able to get the bolt in all the way without it binding up, the new strut in, the control arms in, and my new brake rotor. So I'll just give you guys a peek here through the wheel, one of the perks of these 5 spokes, of what it looks like, and then we'll get back over to the other side, and basically I'm going to be pulling a strut out because I think I have a leaky check valve, and we're going to get the other brake rotor swapped too. So it's a little cozy here, but regular brake rotor, which I am thrilled about. And then I think if we migrate over here, I don't know if we can see, the lighting is not great. Let me try this another way. All right, we've got a little light here, but this is what you saw in the time lapse. New upper control arm with non-destroyed bushings. And then obviously, sorry guys, really cramped here. Struts in there too. I did also, I think I've shared with folks that my parking brake doesn't work. I did test the actuation on the caliper and it works fine. So it's something with my module. I am gonna try and recalibrate it with the SDD, but I am not hopeful. So let's get back over to the other side. So here are the problematic drilled and slotted rotors. Thankfully pretty easy to swap out, so not too worried there. And equally, as I told you guys, I'm a little bit of a master about getting these air struts out. So I'm going to drop this one out so I can access the check valve on top. And for those that aren't familiar with it, if I can get the light good here, maybe, is that good? There we go. Not great, a little dark in here today. There we go. We have our air line here, and basically this little bit at the bottom, if we zoom in, is the check valve, and it goes right in the top of the strut. Unfortunately, to get this out, it is slightly bigger than this opening, so you have to drop the whole strut out to get to it. So we're gonna redo this one. Hopefully won't take too long. We'll get the strut out, get it all put back in, and we'll get that brake rotor done, and we'll be one step closer to being finished. All right, well, I think you guys have seen me do this before, but basically, get the strut out. 4 of these, which we can do like so. I need to just disconnect this air line. I've already unplugged the sensor for the strut, and then the top is free. Not sure if you can hear this, but this was my suspicion all along. Air is leaking out of the check valve, which it shouldn't be doing. So next step for removing the rear strut, get this bolt out so we can get the track arm out the way, and then we're going to remove the lower bolt, and then basically the whole assembly will come out, just kind of down and out. So for the sake of time, I'm going to take care of that, and you'll meet me once the strut is out and on the ground. Okay, so new strut, still Arnott brand, is in with good check valve. So we can get our little plug here. So we have to twist it till the pins line up. Should have probably done that first. There we go. Then we get our air line that sits in here. And we can just start this by hand. I think it's a 10 millimeter just to snug this thing up. And we are all done at the top. Don't worry, I am snugging it up too. A little tricky with one hand, but there she goes. And just to show you under here, the new one's in. Lower bolt cooperated this time, which is great. Track arms in. So that just leaves, get this rotor off. So I think I'm gonna tackle that now. Just 2 bolts on the back of the caliper, and this thing comes right off. I apologize, I don't have my stand for the camera with me, or else I do another time lapse. So you will meet me back here in a few minutes once I got this rotor off. Oops. Okay, so I got the caliper bolts off. So should I be able to wrangle this off? Despicable rotor. Get this over here. Please don't put these on your Jag. Okay, so new rotor is pinned in place. I'm gonna spray this down with brake cleaner real quick just to get the protective oils they leave on these for shipping off. And then we're gonna work on getting this caliper back on. Thought I'd share Chili the shop dog doing shop dog things. I know you guys have seen Chili in the background quite a bit in some of my videos, but he's gonna be spending a lot more time with me here at the office because our home is a little bit of a disaster right now. So he's gonna be at the shop with me, so you'll see a lot more of him around in the background, and probably checking out and doing some quality control of my work as well. So got the wheel rolled into place. I just gotta heft it up here and get the lug nuts on. We can get the car on the ground and see about our air suspension is gonna be working that much better. Okay, well, per usual for the summer, I'm a little sweatier than when I started this, but rear strut's in with a good check valve and the brake rotor's in. So I'll give you a quick overview with the wheel on, and then we're gonna start the car up and let it raise up. Maybe for once I'll capture it on video so you guys can watch. And yeah, I'm gonna let the car sit overnight after that so that we can see when I come back tomorrow if the car deflated or not. Okay, so we're wedged inside the car. Let's start her up. Okay, let's try and catch this. Here she goes. Guessing it's going to take a few goes with the compressor on this one. There she goes. Looks like a normal ride height almost. Just heard the compressor shut off. So just a quick other perspective, but we are at a normal ride height and across. Looks good at the front too. So what does that mean? It means that for right now, the car is aired up. Now, admittedly, it used to do this fine, but overnight I would come back and the car was completely laid out again. I am very hopeful that that bad check valve was the culprit. So I'm gonna let the car sit here overnight aired up, and you will join me tomorrow morning when I come back to see, hopefully, if the car is still sitting about the same ride height. And it may seem crazy, but honestly, I am thrilled to see those plain Jane brake rotors between the wheels instead of those sporty things that were in there before. And I'm really excited to drive the car and hope that the weird kind of drone buzzing when you hit the brakes is gone as well. Well, it's certainly been more than a next day. Unfortunately, you heard me talking about Hurricane Helene and the damage it did to a couple of the low-tech cars, the F-150 and the G37. Well, since then, we had another storm, Hurricane Milton. I think that was pretty well publicized almost globally. That was a very near miss to the area. And that has delayed me in getting this video out. I'm sure you've seen some of my shorts that have been showing what I've been working on as well. But thankfully, no more major damage to our cars or property, which is amazing. But with that, I thought I'd update you on where we landed on the XJ and the strut swap out and the ride height maintaining itself. So you kind of knew where we were with the car, and we could wrap this video up and I could finally get it out to you guys. And you probably heard me say, I'm hoping that this thing stays raised up now overnight. And the positive news, it does. But the not so great news is, basically over like a 48-hour span when the car is sitting, it still really slowly deflates. The good news is I found the culprit, and I thought I'd show you guys what I did to locate it and also what the fix was. And basically I'm gonna do the same fix on the other side of the car as well, really just as a preventative maintenance, because I realized that this component is just about 15 years old and probably worn out. So we're gonna run outside to the car because the shop is basically jam-packed with the remainder of my belongings that survived these last two storms, and we are going to get the little part in there and I'll show you what's going on. So this is the culprit. This is the little O-ring that goes between the airline and the check valve, and this was leaking. So let's try and pick this up here, keep it in focus, but it's pretty flat here, and honestly, not that you guys can feel it, but it is pretty firm too. I'm really not doing O-ring things anymore. And that's why I switched it out on the one strut, and we're gonna switch it out on the other one as well. Look at that beautiful car. I sure love this thing. So you meet me back in the trunk, and yeah, the leak I identified was right here. So you guys saw me doing this up earlier in the video, but basically the O-ring that is on this fitting, I just took another video of it so you can see in more detail, was all dry and not sealing between here and the check valve. So we're gonna replace it on the other side so I can show you how to do it. All right, so we got our trusty 10mm. Be careful not to undo your check valve. I learned the hard way last time. But I will work on this. Seems like the check valve's working a lot better on this side. Oh. Yeah, the car's not going down. So I think this is just the tank venting, which is normal. Oh, car's going down a little bit. So let me get this removed and I'll show you the O-ring here. This was the culprit earlier. See the little black O-ring here? That was leaking. So we're gonna just pull this one off too and put a new one on. I'll show you what I use to get this off. And that's just one of these tiny screwdrivers. You can see it here tucked under the O-ring, and then you can easily kind of just tease it over the threads and it comes off real easy. And then come over to your handy dandy O-ring collection. For those of folks here in the US, I think I got this from Harbor Freight, but I will put a link to this in the description below on Amazon in case there's viewers somewhere else in the globe so they can get it too. And here it is on the fitting. So now we just repeat the process and just thread this back in. Let me just get this guy tightened up. Not too crazy, kind of like I showed you guys before, but just so the O-ring seats here should be good. And we're all done. So I'm going to start the car up so it can raise back up, and hopefully that fixes our slight bleed down over time. Okay, so rule of thumb, when you're messing with replacement struts, be sure to replace the O-rings. They can be pesky, they can leak, and you won't really know what's going on because you think, hey, I just put this new part in, how could it possibly be leaking? So because I got some lightly used Arnotts, it didn't come with new O-rings, so I was not ready to supply those, but once I put them in, the car seems to be behaving a lot better now. So just a quick recap, what we did today, or over the last few weeks to be honest, is we swapped out a strut that had a bad check valve, so we got that taken care of. We replaced the rear upper control arm, which basically helped solve a vibration that was in the back. And we also replaced the rear brake rotors on the car. Again, I highly recommend that you just use stock style brake rotors. Do not put these sporty drilled and slotted types on the car. Like I said, for me, when you hit the brakes, it created this buzzing sensation throughout the whole car. And I believe that's because of the aluminum architecture. It just transfers vibrations extremely easily. So that's just my tip on that. But really the goal here, and I've shared this with everyone, is I'm trying to just make this mechanically sorted. So it's nice and reliable. And at the point in time, I am ready to pass this on to the new owner, that it is a completely sorted car that they can enjoy for years to come. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone's patience with getting this video out. The 2 storms back to back, 1 week after another, has been extremely disruptive. Like I said, obviously we had some damage and some losses, but I am only getting internet back today as well, and power just a couple of days before. So I really appreciate everyone's patience. If this is your first video that you found on the channel, please consider subscribing. Please hit that like button and please comment below. I do my best to engage with all of you, answer your questions if I know the answers. And really the goal here is to continue to bring you this content even during times of natural disaster, so that you can learn about what I'm doing with my small collection, and also how you can keep these awesome cars on the road and out of the junkyard by maintaining them yourself on a budget. So with that, I'm going to end the episode here, and see you all on the next episode that will be coming much sooner. Thanks everyone.